I received the greatest news of my life. I won $150 million. But just a few hours later, my daughter-in-law threw all my belongings out and shouted at me.
You don't have a place here anymore! We don't need you!
Before I could even react, I was kicked out of the very house I had worked so hard to build, all because of a lottery ticket. Will justice prevail in this family? I had always thought that family was the one place I could find peace, but everything changed one unexpected morning. I'm Martha Johnson, 62 years old, a retired teacher living in a 2-story house that had been my home for nearly 3 decades. The house sat quietly on a street corner in Savannah, Georgia, where the streets were covered with fallen leaves in the fall and the air always carried a bit of dampness from the rainy days. I had spent my life building this life, a life that wasn't overly wealthy, but enough to feel warm and never lacking in family love. My son, John Johnson, 34, was my greatest pride. Since he was a child, he was always smart and filial. But now he had grown up and started his own family. Lily, John's wife, was a beautiful and intelligent woman, but also very ambitious. The two of them lived with me in this house, although I didn't always feel close to them. We used to get along very well, but everything started to change when John lost his job and Lily got pregnant. Our family wasn't rich. I was the only one with a steady income from my job as a teacher for many years. After retirement, I lived off my pension and a small amount of savings I had managed to set aside over the years. We didn't have luxury items, but the house was always clean, the meals were warm, and I always tried to spend time with my family. However, in recent years, I had to carry a lot. John had been unemployed several times, and every time I had to cover all the expenses. Lily seemed uninterested in helping financially. Even so, I never complained because I always believed that family love was priceless. I still remember very clearly the day everything changed. That day, I decided to buy a lottery ticket, something I had never done before. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was just a sudden feeling when I walked into the convenience store and saw the ticket right in front of me. I bought the ticket with the numbers I always remembered, my birthday, John's birthday, and numbers I felt familiar with as a way to connect with old memories. I didn't think it would change my life, but life is never predictable. That day when I checked the lottery results, everything seemed to crumble beneath my feet. I had won $150 million. The number seemed like a dream come true, something I had never imagined. I looked at the ticket in my hand and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke from fate, but then I realized one thing. My life would never be the same again. I ran into the house shouting to John and Lily, who were sitting in the living room. "John, Lily, we've won the lottery, $150 million. I clearly remember the look on their faces at that moment. John jumped up from the chair, his face turning red in disbelief. Lily stood up, her eyes sparkling, her lips curling into a wide smile. They hugged each other, jumping up and down like children receiving a big gift. I laughed, feeling happy to see my family so joyful. But my happiness didn't last long. Immediately after hearing the news, everything began to change in ways I couldn't believe. Lily, who I had always considered a daughter, started to change her attitude. She began demanding things from me that I never thought would happen. One day she said to me, "Martha, now we can have a new life. You should move upstairs." Her words were like a shock to me. It felt like a stab to my heart. The house I had lived in and built over the years suddenly didn't feel like mine anymore. "I don't understand, Lily. This is my house," I tried to say, but my voice was choked with emotion. The feeling I had at that moment is hard to describe. I had spent my life caring for my family, but now I felt like a stranger in my own home. However, I didn't say anything else, just silently retreated upstairs to a place that was no longer my home, but just a small corner in my son and daughter-in-law's house. This feeling, I never thought I would have to experience it, especially from those I had sacrificed so much for. After that, everything changed rapidly. Lily wanted everything to be luxurious and modern. She began shopping for new furniture, changing everything in the house. Every time I looked at my old room, I felt like I was living in a different space, one where there was no love or care. Everything had changed, and I no longer had a place. I began to feel like I was an unnecessary person in my own family. But I never expected that the worst was yet to come. Lily made her move, and there was nothing I could do but watch. Greed had consumed everything in this family, and my life, once that of a mother and grandmother, suddenly became a never-ending battle with no way out. Right after my family received the exciting news about the $150 million lottery win, I never imagined that my peaceful days would vanish so quickly. Lily, my daughter-in-law, whom I had always treated like a daughter, immediately changed. At first, she smiled, congratulated me, and hugged me, but over time, I began to sense a shift in the way she viewed everything. She was no longer the woman I knew, but someone completely different, ambitious and calculating. One morning, after the family had started making plans for how to spend the winnings, Lily sat down next to me in the kitchen, her face more unfamiliar than ever. "Martha," she began, her voice soft yet unusually determined, "you'll need to move upstairs. We'll renovate the downstairs to fit our new life. The whole family needs their own space, and you'll be more comfortable up there." I looked at her, a sharp pang in my heart. This was the home that my husband and I had built over many years, a home that had witnessed countless memories and struggles, and now I was being asked to move upstairs into a small corner as if I were an outsider in my own family. "But Lily, this is my home. I've lived here my whole life, and I don't understand why you want me to leave." I couldn't hide my hurt, though. I still tried to keep calm, despite the storm raging inside me. Lily didn't look at me. Instead, she sat silently for a while before speaking again. "You're getting older. Living upstairs will be better for your health. Now that we have money, we need to live like we deserve to." Her words were like a knife cutting deeply into my heart. She was no longer the caring, gentle girl I had once adored. The greed in her eyes made me feel like a stranger. "I don't want to be a burden to you, but at least I have the right to live in the home I built, not as a guest." The next day, I began to feel the change more clearly. John, my son, instead of standing up for me, remained silent, his eyes just glancing over me vacantly. He didn't say a word, and that was when I realized that my family had likely changed forever. Lily began making decisions I couldn't accept. She wanted to renovate the entire house, buy expensive things, and throw lavish parties to show off to her friends. Every time I saw her, I only saw extravagance, emptiness, and a lack of the love I once believed was eternal. One day I decided to go upstairs, the place where I would be living from then on. My room now only held sad memories. It was no longer a warm space, but a small corner in their vast house. I sat down on the old bed, looking out the window, and suddenly realized that the very people I loved most had made me feel the loneliest of all. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of laughter and happy voices from downstairs echoed while I sat alone in the cold room feeling abandoned. That feeling became more pronounced as Lily started treating me differently. She no longer called me Mom, but instead Martha, as if I were a stranger in my own family. A week later, as everything seemed to settle in Lily's new house, I began to feel the change in our relationship even more. Lily continued asking me to do things I couldn't accept, and I felt as though I was living in a world where I no longer had a place. One day, she said bluntly, "Martha, I think you should find somewhere else to live. We need space to grow." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was my home, the place where I raised my son, the place where I witnessed so many joys and sorrows. Now I was being pushed out, and all I received in return was silence and indifference. "Lily, are you sure about this decision?" My voice trembled as I asked. "Yes, Mom. Everything has changed. We have money now. It's time to live the life we deserve," she said, her eyes devoid of any emotion. The feeling of betrayal surged within me, and I decided not to stay silent any longer. I couldn't let Lily and John deceive me again. This feeling, the feeling of a mother abandoned by her own family, was something I couldn't accept. I had to act. These events made me realize that greed could change people, even erode the core values I had instilled in my family. But I wouldn't let it end like this. I would fight, not just for the money, but for the love and respect I had given to my family all these years. Since Lily asked me to leave the house I had lived in all my life, the feelings of pain and emptiness have tormented my mind. I had hoped that at least John would stand up to protect me, the mother who had raised him single-handedly. But I was wrong. He just stood there silent, not saying a word. Both he and Lily remained quiet, as if they were trying to push me out of their lives without mercy. That night, I sat alone in my room, the faint light from the desk lamp casting shadows around me. The lottery ticket I had carefully kept in my wallet now lay on the table, a reminder of the new life I thought would bring happiness. But now it only made me feel even lonelier. The price of greed wasn't just money, it was the coldness from the people I loved most. The next morning, I no longer wanted to face Lily or John. I couldn't bear their change in attitude. Suddenly, this house became a place I no longer wanted to be. One early morning, Lily came near me, her eyes cold and her tone determined. "Martha, you need to start packing. You can't stay here forever. This is no longer a place for you." Her words were like a sharp knife cutting into my self-respect. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had spent my entire life for this family, and now I was being treated like an outsider. I looked at Lily, my eyes filled with tears, trying to keep calm, but my heart was breaking. "Do you really want me to leave?" I asked, my voice betraying the pain I was feeling. She didn't answer, just turned away as if I didn't exist. The feeling of being abandoned, forgotten in my own home, made me lose control of my anger. I walked outside, seeing my belongings hastily thrown into the yard. My wedding photo with Arthur, the wedding dress I once cherished, all lying on the ground, discarded by someone without mercy. That feeling was unbearable, like everything I had worked my whole life to preserve had been taken from me. I couldn't take it anymore. John stood there silent, hands in his pockets, avoiding my gaze. "Don't you see? This is my house, and she wants me to leave. Why aren't you doing anything?" I asked him, but he remained silent, offering no explanation. The feeling of betrayal completely consumed me. My son, the one I had hoped would protect me, was now siding with his wife, accepting her cruelty. At that moment, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't stand by and accept this treatment. I wouldn't let my son and Lily treat me as if I were worthless, with no place in the very house I had built. I decided to find a lawyer and start a legal battle to seek justice, not just for myself, but for everything I had sacrificed throughout my life. This wasn't just a fight for the lottery money, but to protect my dignity and honor. I will never forget the feeling that morning when I walked into Laura's office, the lawyer I had hired. She was a strong, decisive woman, and I felt that with her, I had a chance. Martha, if you want to win, we'll need to prove that the lottery ticket is yours and that Lily has no right to that money, Laura said, her eyes full of certainty. She began preparing for the legal battle, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of control. I didn't know what would happen next, but I couldn't let myself be discarded like this. The feeling of betrayal only strengthened my resolve. I couldn't continue living like this in a family where love and honesty were replaced by greed. In the following days, I started gathering all the evidence I could, from a copy of the lottery ticket to testimonies from neighbors who had witnessed Lily and John's actions. I knew this battle wouldn't be easy, but I had decided that I would fight until the end. Everything had changed, and I could never go back to how things were before. I had stepped out of the embrace of my family, but I was not the one who would lose. This was just the beginning of a much bigger battle, and I wouldn't stop until justice was served. The next day, I woke up early feeling like an endless night had just passed. My room upstairs, where I had started over, now felt like a temporary refuge. I didn't feel free anymore, but I had no other choice. The past few days had gone by so quickly, and I didn't know what to do. But now I knew I would fight, not for the money, but for my honor, for the respect I deserved. The lucky lottery ticket was still in my wallet, a reminder I couldn't erase. I didn't want to fight for the money, but Lily and John had turned it into a political tool, something to destroy me with. I had decided I wouldn't let them trample over my life. I needed to regain my respect, regain myself, and I would do everything to make sure justice would prevail. The sense of helplessness I had before suddenly disappeared when I walked into Laura's office. Laura was the lawyer I had found after several days of confusion. She looked at me, her gaze full of determination and confidence. "Martha, you're not alone in this fight. We will prove that the lottery ticket is yours. Based on the evidence you have, I believe this is a case we can win," Laura said, sitting down across from me and opening her notebook. "Let's start from the beginning. Everything needs to be clear and detailed." I felt a sense of relief hearing those words. Perhaps this was what I needed to regain my confidence. I began recounting everything to Laura, from the years of hard work I spent providing for the family, to buying the lottery ticket with numbers that seemed random, and finally to the strange changes in Lily and John's behavior. "We need to clarify two things," Laura continued, her voice strong. "First, we will prove that you were the one who bought the lottery ticket. And second, we need to show that Lily acted unlawfully by kicking you out of the house." I didn't know how long this battle would take, but I couldn't stop. I wouldn't let Lily continue treating me as worthless. I would show them that respect and family couldn't be bought with money. The next day, Laura began working, gathering evidence, and preparing the lawsuit. Every time I met with her, a feeling of anxiety crept up inside me. I didn't know what Lily would do next. She had proven that greed could destroy everything beautiful in a family. I couldn't just stand by and watch them continue. A week later, I received a notice from the court. The trial would take place at the end of the month. I remembered that day when I stood in the living room waiting for John to return from work. He didn't say anything, but I could see the coldness in his eyes. He didn't speak up, didn't protect me, didn't stand by his mother. And that was when I realized that everything had changed. John was no longer the son I had loved and hoped would protect me. One day, when Lily was hosting a victory party, I stood in the corner of the room watching everyone laugh and talk. I couldn't understand how they could live happily while they had pushed me out. "Thank you all for coming," Lily said, smiling sweetly as if nothing had happened. She didn't realize that her words and actions were slowly destroying the family. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked up to John. my voice calm but filled with pain. "John, do you really think I don't deserve respect?" I asked, my heart heavy. He looked at me, but his gaze only passed over me, then continued chatting with the guests. The feeling of being abandoned, of being made to feel invisible, hurt deeply. I couldn't stand there anymore, being nothing but an outsider in my own family. I had to do something. I had to make Lily and John realize their mistake. But I also knew that it wouldn't be easy to change everything. I walked out of the house heading alone to the courthouse. No matter how many people told me I would lose, that my family would never return to what it was, I still held on to the belief that justice would prevail. Walking into the courtroom, I could feel the serious atmosphere, and the people around me were indifferent to my family's story. But I knew I was fighting for something worth more than money, for love and respect that I had spent my whole life preserving. And in that very moment, I knew that no matter what the outcome was, I had regained my power. My resilience and courage had helped me walk this path not just for money, but for the values of family, love, and justice. That day, I sat in the living room holding the lottery ticket that was still intact, like a reminder of everything I had lost. While Lily and John continued to live their lavish lives, I felt more and more forgotten, erased from my own home. Everything around me seemed to be filled with coldness, and no one counted on me anymore. But just when I felt the most hopeless, something unexpected happened. Darius, my eldest son, who had left home long ago, suddenly appeared. Darius was the one I loved and was most proud of. He grew up under my care, witnessing all the ups and downs of the family. But in the last few years, he had changed, distancing himself from the family. The reason he wasn't close to me anymore was partly due to Lily's interference. She always tried to create a gap between Darius and me, and maybe I hadn't realized it until now. But when he walked into the house that day, I saw a change in Darius's eyes, as if he had begun to reassess everything. "I know everything," Mom Darius said, his voice deep and full of exhaustion. "I can't stand by and watch you be treated like this anymore." I looked at him, unable to hide the emotions in my heart. After so many months of silence, I finally saw a glimmer of hope from my own son. "Thank you, Darius," I said, my voice choking. "I don't know what to do anymore. The whole family has changed so fast. What did I do wrong?" Darius silently sat next to me, his eyes looking at me full of regret. "It's not your fault. It's ours. I listened too much to Lily, let her deceive me. I'm sorry for not standing by you." The feeling I had at that moment was indescribable, as if a heavy burden had suddenly been lifted. I hadn't expected that my son would wake up and decide to stand by me, even though it was a bit too late. Darius looked at me for a long time, his eyes filled with deep thought and inner conflict. "Mom, I can't live like this anymore. I won't let Lily continue to treat you like you're worthless. I'm going to face her." Those words were like a declaration of war, but also a promise that Darius had made to me. I didn't know what he would do, but I knew one thing for sure. Darius had decided to stand by me, even though it was a difficult and risky decision. Darius had realized his mistake. He couldn't continue siding with Lily, who had destroyed everything we had built. Though he had once been a part of this family, now he could see clearly that Lily had exploited our feelings to achieve her own goals. After months of being afraid to face the truth, Darius finally realized that his silence had only made things worse. The day after, Darius decided to confront Lily and demand that she face the truth. "Lily, I can't stand by your side anymore. You've been too greedy. You've lied to both me and Mom. You can't keep acting like this," Darius said, his voice more determined and stronger than ever. Lily stood frozen when she heard Darius's words, her eyes flashing with confusion, but also a bit of arrogance. "What are you talking about? You've got everything already. Your mom is just an old woman who doesn't understand what it really means to live," Lily said, her voice dripping with arrogance. Darius wouldn't back down. He stepped toward her, his gaze never leaving hers. "No, I was wrong. You can't just act like a queen in this house. I won't let you continue to hurt my mom." Lily looked at Darius, her mouth slightly open, as if to say something, but in the end, silence took over. She realized that Darius was no longer someone she could manipulate as she had before. He had stood up, not just for me, but also for himself. Darius was no longer someone who was swayed by Lily, but a grown man ready to protect what was right. From that moment on, the change in Darius was obvious. He didn't just help me emotionally, but also began supporting me in preparing for the upcoming lawsuit. Darius understood that we couldn't let Lily continue to ostracize our family. And I also realized that no matter how life changed, family was still the place we must protect and support each other. Darius's awakening wasn't just a crucial turning point in this legal battle, but also a reminder that no matter how much we've been deceived or betrayed, in the end, justice and family ties will speak out. Darius realized that standing by the truth and protecting loved ones was the most important thing, no matter how difficult it might be. That day, I never expected that I would face an even bigger shock from Lily. After Darius decided to stand by me, this family battle became more intense than ever. Lily, the woman I once considered a daughter, had now become a blatant liar, using every tactic to protect her own interests. She began changing tactics, no longer pretending to be friendly or wanting to reconcile with me. Instead, she sought every way to justify her actions. As soon as Darius confronted her and demanded that she take responsibility for what she had done, Lily not only refused to admit her mistakes, but continued to lie. "Martha, don't think that ticket belongs to you. It was a gift from me," she said, her tone casual, as if she were talking about a birthday gift, not a large sum of money that could change lives. I looked at her, unable to believe what I had just heard. How could she lie so shamelessly, even when all the evidence pointed to me being the one who bought the lottery ticket, Lily? "Do you really think I'm stupid enough not to know what you've done?" I responded, my voice full of anger, but also feeling like I was facing someone I once considered family, now an enemy. Lily continued undeterred. "You can say whatever you want, but that ticket is clearly mine, and I have the right to do whatever I want with it. You can't blame me." I stood silent, unable to believe my ears. She was denying everything, even the things I had done for this family all my life. I tried to restrain myself, but the anger inside me was rising. Lily not only wanted to take the lottery ticket, but also wanted to erase everything I had done for this family, to turn me into someone worthless. But I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't let her take everything just because of greed. Right after that, I decided I couldn't stand idly by and let her continue her tyranny. I didn't just want to fight to get the money back, but also to clear the truth for the whole family, especially for Darius, who had stood by me. I started preparing a plan to bring everything to light. I didn't just want to face Lily, I had to bring her to justice to prove that she was deceiving not just me, but herself as well. Darius had helped me gather all the necessary information, from copies of the lottery ticket to evidence of the time and date I had bought it. We even contacted the ticket vendors to retrieve data related to the purchase. And soon after, one of the ticket vendors provided us with crucial evidence. Lily could say that she got the ticket from me, but the vendor clearly remembered the day I bought the ticket and even remembered that I had signed the ticket with a special number that represented important dates to me. I breathed a sigh of relief as these pieces of evidence began to reveal the truth. That was the key evidence we needed. The ticket not only had my name on the back, but also had fingerprints and information that only I could provide. Lily could no longer deny it. She had deceived me, taken something that wasn't hers, and now she would have to pay for it. Still, Lily didn't give up. She kept trying to find ways to deal with the evidence we presented. She even called some of her friends to try and diminish the value of the evidence, saying it was just a small matter, not worth involving anyone. But what she didn't know was that I had prepared very carefully. I had contacted the lawyer, not just to protect my rights, but also to bring Lily to light. The lottery ticket, which had been the source of the family's upheaval, had now become a tool to help us seek justice. The next day, as Darius and I prepared to go to court to submit all the evidence, I saw Lily standing at the door, her eyes filled with defiance. "Martha, do you think you can win? You're just an old woman with no power to fight against me," she said, her tone arrogant, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I didn't say anything, just smiled and walked past her full of determination. "Lily," I replied, my voice more confident than ever, "truth will always prevail. I won't let you continue to destroy what we've built." We walked into the courtroom, and I felt like I was entering the final battle. Lily could deceive everyone, but she couldn't deceive justice. Everything would soon be revealed. After everything that had happened, after the cold words and the actions that had eroded the love in the family, I felt a change within me, a feeling I couldn't quite explain, but clearly it was coming. It was Darius's awakening. Even though he had witnessed how badly his mother had been treated, even after hearing my account of how things were, now he still wasn't strong enough to stand up and protect me. But a crucial event happened that made him realize everything had crossed the line. Throughout all this time, Darius had always been in the middle, uncertain and indecisive. He didn't want to hurt Lily, his wife, but he also couldn't accept the irrational way she treated me. But everything changed when Darius himself witnessed Lily stand before the court, continuing to lie, still insisting that the lottery ticket was hers despite the clear evidence. That evening, after the tense trial, when Darius and I sat together in the living room, he didn't speak for a long time. He looked at me with a completely different gaze than usual. "Mom, I'm sorry," Darius suddenly spoke, his voice full of regret. This feeling within me was a mixture of joy and pain, hearing my son admit his mistakes. "I was wrong for not standing by you. I can't stay silent anymore, especially when you're being hurt like this." Darius's words were like a spark of light in the dark night. He had changed, finally realizing the true value of family, understanding that a mother's love is not something to be overlooked for the comfort of an easy life. Lily had exploited Darius for too long, blinding him with a life of luxury, but now he had awoken. "I won't let you suffer any more. I will stand up to protect you, no matter who I have to face." Darius's voice was full of determination. Those words were like a promise, a statement that he would never back down. We both sat in silence, looking at each other, no further words needed. That was the moment I knew we would win. I didn't need money, I didn't need wealth, I only needed family, and above all, I needed Darius to stand by me. The next day, Darius decided to confront Lily directly. He no longer wanted to avoid it. He didn't want to give her another chance to keep lying. Darius went to see Lily, not with advice or sarcasm, but with a decisiveness he had never shown before. "Lily, you can't keep living this lie," he said, his voice firm and undeniable. "My mother bought that lottery ticket, not you. You need to take responsibility for your actions." Lily looked at Darius in confusion, as though she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "What are you talking about? Do you think your mom is going to win?" All you're doing is protecting someone who has no right to it, she sneered. But in her eyes, I saw fear creeping in. Lily had always believed that money could buy everything, that she could control everything. But now she realized that Darius was no longer a puppet for her to manipulate. Darius didn't back down, his gaze unwavering. Do you think you can keep deceiving everyone? You can't hide the truth forever, Lily. My mother has nurtured you, has supported this family for years, but you've treated her terribly, and I will never forgive you for that. Lily froze, as though Darius's words had confused her. She had always thought she could manipulate everything, but now Darius had changed, no longer the son she could easily control. She looked at Darius with a challenging expression, but this time she no longer had the confidence she once did. "What do you think you'll do?" Lily said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, but tinged with fear. "Do you dare to face me?" Darius took another step forward, looking directly into Lily's eyes. "Justice will prevail. And you will have to pay for what you've done. That ticket belongs to my mother, and you can't deceive anyone anymore." I stood behind watching this confrontation with a sense of both pride and emotion. Darius had finally awakened. He was no longer the one pulled into Lily's deceit. He had stood up to protect me, to protect the family values I had worked so hard to build. The feeling was amazing, as though all the pain and despair I had felt over the past time had finally been repaid. Lily stood there, her eyes filled with panic, but she could do nothing. She had lost not just legally, but emotionally. She could no longer claim something she thought was hers, and now the truth had been exposed. Darius turned back to look at me, his eyes bright with determination. "Mom, I will never let anyone hurt you again. I will protect you, even if I have to lose everything." I looked at my son, unable to hide the pride and emotion in my heart. "Thank you, Darius, for finding what's right, for standing by your mother, for no longer being blinded." And in that moment, I understood that no matter what challenges our family faced, as long as we had love and honesty, we could overcome everything. Finally, after all the long days, after the arguments, betrayal, and schemes from Lily, I stood before the courtroom ready for everything to end. A part of me still felt confused, but the other part was filled with determination. I hadn't given up, even when things seemed to get worse, even when Lily made me feel like an outsider in my own family. But I knew that what I was fighting for wasn't just money. It was dignity and respect to protect what I truly deserved. That day, the weather wasn't too hot, but inside me, the air still felt tense. I remember every detail of the trial clearly. Lily stood before the court, her face cold, but I could see the panic in her eyes. Even though she still tried to act arrogantly, I knew she couldn't escape the evidence we had gathered. Every word, every action of hers now seemed like a meaningless defense against what had already been exposed. Darius sat next to me, his eyes never leaving Lily. He had been with me throughout this entire journey, helping me get through the most difficult moments. The feeling of knowing I wasn't alone in this battle gave me extra strength. My family stood by me, but most importantly, the truth would finally come to light. I knew that the truth always has a way of revealing itself, and today it would win. The court proceedings began, and Lily seemed to have prepared a script for her defense. She continued to insist that the lottery ticket was a gift I had given her. She also claimed that it was all a misunderstanding, a family joke. But I knew that those words no longer had any power. They couldn't deceive the law, nor could they deceive the people who stood by me. I clenched my fists, looked at Lily, and spoke up. "This is not a joke. This is the truth. That ticket is mine." I bought it from the store across the street that day with numbers that have been a part of my family for years. I have clear evidence, and I have nothing to be ashamed of in standing here to tell the truth." Lily turned to look at me, her face paling a little, but she still tried to keep her smug expression. "Martha, what did I do wrong? You've always been like this, always trying to keep everything for yourself," she said, her voice sharp. "I'm just trying to get what I deserve." But Lily's words no longer carried weight. My lawyer Laura had prepared all the necessary evidence, and as soon as Lily finished speaking, she began to expose the lies. That lottery ticket is not hers. Mrs. Martha is the rightful owner. We have the store's transaction record and undeniable evidence of the time and date the ticket was purchased, Laura said, her voice firm. Each piece of evidence was presented clearly, every detail exposed to the light, and Lily couldn't do anything but stay silent. Her lies had no ground to stand on. Inside, I felt a sense of relief. At last, the truth had spoken. Nothing could stop me from achieving justice. After hearing all the arguments and reviewing the evidence, the judge rendered a decision. I felt a little overwhelmed, but deep inside, I knew I had done what was right. Based on all the evidence, particularly the verified documents from the store, the court declares that Mrs. Martha Johnson is the lawful owner of the lottery ticket. The $150 million prize will be transferred to the account Mrs. Martha Johnson designated. As for Mrs. Lily's actions, the court will conduct further investigations into her fraudulent behavior. The judgment echoed through the air, and at that moment I could only stand there, my heart filled with emotion. I had won. Finally, justice had been served. The sense of victory wasn't because of the money, but because I had protected my family, regained the respect I deserved. Darius stood beside me, his eyes filled with pride. "Mom, I knew you could do it," he whispered. But as for Lily, she would face the consequences of her deceit. After the court declared my ownership of the lottery ticket, Lily could no longer hold her arrogant attitude. She was ordered to return all the money she had wrongfully taken, and not only that, her actions would be further investigated. Some documents and records had been handed over to the authorities, and Lily would have to face serious legal repercussions. When I saw Lily leave the courtroom, her face full of confusion and panic, I knew she had failed. But for me, that wasn't the victory I had hoped for. True victory was when I could stand firm on my own, when I could protect those I loved. And now I felt I had done that. Justice had been served. Lily would have to pay for what she had done, and I, as a mother and a grandmother, would continue to uphold the values of my family. A week after the trial ended, the days passed in a strange, heavy silence. Lily had left the house facing the consequences of her deceit, but that wasn't the end for everything. For me, true peace was the hardest thing to achieve. The lottery ticket hadn't just brought wealth, it had torn my family apart. And throughout this time, I had lost the most precious thing, my closeness and trust with my son. I sat alone in the garden, the place where Arthur and I used to sit in the evenings. The trees around me were beginning to shed their leaves, their golden hues falling gently like memories slowly fading away. I closed my eyes, letting the breeze sweep through my hair, feeling the stillness of the space. But even in that silence, one thought refused to leave my mind, Darius. I didn't know where he was or what he was thinking after everything that had happened. He had changed, and what I had hoped for him never came. Just as I was lost in these thoughts, I heard a car stop outside the gate. I looked up and recognized an old, unfamiliar car. A second later, Darius stepped out. His appearance was different from the last time I saw him. He no longer had the arrogant, confident demeanor I was used to seeing, but now there was a man standing before me, someone who seemed older, burdened and filled with regret. He walked towards me, still maintaining some distance, as though unsure how to approach, how to start again. "Mom," Darius said, his voice thick, slightly trembling. He stood there, avoiding my gaze, his hands awkwardly fidgeting, as if unsure of what to do next. I looked at him, feeling a wave of emotions, sorrow, hope, and a quiet relief. He was trying, but could it be too late? "I've disappointed you so much, Mom. I don't know what to say. I just know I'm so sorry." "Please forgive me, Darius," continued his words, a desperate plea. "I was wrong. I let Lily and what she did make me forget what matters most in life. I didn't see you. I didn't see our family." At that moment, I felt a profound sadness. I had hoped for so long that he would come to this realization. But now that it was happening, the weight of it felt unbearable. Could I really forgive him for all he had done, for standing by while Lily tore everything apart? "I've tried, Darius," I replied, my voice soft yet heavy with restraint. "I've sacrificed everything for this family, for you, for Lily. I trusted you, and you let yourself be deceived. You allowed someone else to break everything I worked so hard to build." Darius lowered his head like the words had struck deep within him. He didn't know how to respond, just standing there silent as if he was accepting his own punishment. I looked at him, my heart heavy with both love and pain. He was my son, my blood. How could I not love him? How could I not feel the pull of that love, even after everything? "I wasn't seeing what you did for us, but I see it now. I'll change, Mom. I promise. I'll make it right," Darius said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "I want to be your son again. I want to protect you, just like you've always protected me." I didn't respond immediately. I turned away for a moment, trying to steady my emotions. Darius had made a mistake, and I couldn't simply forgive him without facing the reality of what he had done. The past months had been filled with sacrifice, struggle, and heartbreak. Could I really let it go that easily? But then again, I was his mother, and a mother's love isn't something that can be erased so easily. Even after everything, that love remains. The love I had for Darius was still there, buried under the hurt, but it was still there. "I can't forgive you easily, Darius," I said, my voice firm. "You've let me down, and I can't forget what you've done." But I paused, looking at him. "I see that you've changed. I see that you're trying, and that's what matters. But you'll have to prove it. You'll have to show me that you're truly sorry." Darius looked up at me, his eyes filled with hope. "I will, Mom. I'll prove it. I swear I will." I stared at him for a long moment, weighing his words, assessing his sincerity. He wasn't the same person he was before, but could he really change? Could he really make things right? I didn't know, but I knew I had to try. We had to try. "Moms don't forgive easily, Darius," I said quietly. "But if you really want to change, I'll be here. But you must know, my love for you isn't unconditional. It has its limits, and you need to earn that trust back." He nodded, his eyes wet with emotion. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'm sorry, Mom. I really am." As Darius left that day, I felt a strange peace settle within me. It wasn't an immediate forgiveness, but it was the first step, the first time in months that I felt there might be hope for us, that maybe we could start again. Darius had come back to me not as the person I once knew, but as someone who had realized his mistakes and was ready to change. And that, I realized, was all I had ever wanted from him. As I stood in the garden watching him drive away, I felt a bittersweet hope blossom in my chest. No matter what the future held, I knew one thing for certain. Darius had finally begun to understand the value of family. And maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to heal the wounds that had been inflicted. After all that has happened, I stand at the threshold of a new life, a life where I no longer have to face betrayal or deceit. I stand by the window of my room, the gentle sunlight streaming through like a reminder that life never stops. After so many years spent in the darkness of doubt and suffering, I found the light again for myself. Darius is no longer the naive son, easily influenced by lies. He has changed. He now understands that family matters above all else, that love and respect cannot be traded for anything, not even money. I look at him and see hope. I see determination that I never thought I would see in him. Just once, he made me proud of myself, and I believe he will continue to grow, not only in my eyes, but in his own as well. My life now is different. After reclaiming ownership of the lottery ticket, I decided to use the money to create a fund for the grandchildren so they can study and develop without having to endure the hardships I've gone through. For so many years, I worked tirelessly to support this family, but now I want to create a solid foundation for their future. Darius and Lily may have caused me pain, but that will not stop me from doing what is right for the family's future. Looking back at all that has happened, I no longer feel anger as I once did. Instead, I feel peace in my heart. I have done all I can to protect my family, and now I can be proud that I fought for love and justice, not for the money, but for something much greater, that is family sacrifice and the lessons I've learned over the years. And Lily, she has realized that not everything can be bought with money. She has lost everything. She has lost the respect of the family. She has lost what she thought was protection through lies. She may have all the money and wealth, but what she doesn't have is honesty and true love. She made the mistake of losing those values because of greed. But still, I no longer feel hatred toward her. She will have to face the consequences of her actions, and I will not interfere with that. My life now is not filled with storms, but with peaceful days where I've found myself again. The wounds in my heart slowly heal, though I will never forget. I understand now that I have to live for myself, not for the ones who've hurt me. I cannot let the past control my future. I've learned that sometimes letting go is the only way to move forward. Days passed and I began to engage in charity work, spending time with family, with loved ones around me. I take care of the grandchildren, teaching them the values I've learned throughout my life. I don't need to be wealthy or famous. I just need to live true to myself, to the things I believe in. Darius has grown a lot, but I know he still has a long way to go. He still has many mistakes to correct, but this time I trust him. We no longer live in a broken family. Now we live in a family with love, respect, and forgiveness. Darius has learned the greatest lesson from life, and I hope he continues on the right path, not only for himself, but for the family. As for Lily, she may have gone, but the lesson about greed and deceit will never be forgotten. Justice has been served and the truth has triumphed. Lily may have tried to break this family, but she couldn't break what we've built, love and honesty. Looking at the children, I see new hope. Ava and Micah are the future of this family, and I will do everything I can to give them a better life, one where they don't have to suffer from the mistakes that Darius and I made. They need to understand that money is not everything. Yes, money can help in life, but it cannot buy love, honesty, and respect. My life now is a story of growth, of difficult lessons, but also incredibly valuable ones. Even though the past has been filled with mistakes, I believe the future will be brighter. Now I can breathe easier and live the life I've always wanted. The ending of our story is not a perfect one, but it is the beginning of a new journey. A journey that I believe we will go through with forgiveness, love, and lessons learned from our missteps. Family love will always be the most important thing, and I have learned that no matter what we may lose, If we have love and honesty, we can overcome anything. In the end, I realized that not everything we lose in life is truly lost. Sometimes pain and mistakes are necessary steps for us to grow, to understand the true value of things that seem simple but are priceless. Family love is not something naturally present. It is something we must protect, nurture, and sometimes forgive the wrongs of. Martha was once a great mother, not just because of her sacrifices, but because of the strength of her resilience and her ability to forgive. I know life is never simple, but every step, every lesson brings us an opportunity to love more, understand more, and live more responsibly. And no matter how cruel the past may be, if we know how to stand up and choose love, justice will always find a way to speak out, just as it did in our story. This story is not just about fighting for a lottery ticket. It is about fighting for respect, love, and family. It reminds us that even though life may sweep us away sometimes, we need to remember and find what truly matters, something no one can take away from us. That is kindness and the truth. And so our life continues not in revenge or hatred, but in forgiveness and hope, because love, after everything, is what makes us keep going, not just because of what we've lost, but because of what we can still build in the future.